Can you imagine if the Oilers' slogan actually was "goaltending is optional" and Mike Smith, the dark horse, wins the Conn Smythe Trophy? That would be absolutely hilarious. We have a conference finals battle, of course, Colorado, Edmonton on one side, Tampa Bay and the New York Rangers on the other. Maybe a little bit of a watchability, a little bit of a comparison in these two series, a lot of different storylines going in. Wish, why don't we go item by item and see which series has the edge, or we would give the nod proverbially to. For hashtag grow the game. Always talk about that amongst hockey fans. Grow the game, grow the game, grow the game. Which series is better?
Oh, without question, it's the Western Conference Final. I mean, you have Nathan McKinnon and Cale Makar on one side that do magic things, and you have the best player in the world, Connor McDavid, on the other side. Any casual sports fan understands talent. They understand watching somebody who is doing things that no one else on the ice is doing, and that's Connor McDavid. You look at the ratings that the Battle of Alberta got. Some of that is probably the rivalry. Most of that is probably people tuning in to catch the human cheat code and what he can do on the ice.
And not only that, to your point, Connor McDavid, and I believe Kevin Weeks has mentioned that he absolutely deserves to be spoken about in America on all sports talk shows to the same degree and the same conversation vicinity as a LeBron James or a Tom Brady. That is the level that he brings to hockey as compared to all of his peers. And I like the idea of him being treated as a superstar, even if that is not, quote, hockey culture, unquote. So I'm with you. Grow the game. Connor McDavid being far in the playoffs and seeing him on that spotlight is absolutely a great thing. But for hockey nerds, which series gets the edge?
Oh, it's got to be the East, baby. I mean, it's a goaltender's duel between Igor Shesterkin and Andrei Vasilevsky. And when you're talking about the nuances of the game, when you're talking about what the goalies do, what defenses do, what team building does, you've got to love the Eastern Conference matchup. It's not going to be a bunch of 9-8 games, Arda. It's going to be a lot closer, and it's going to be watching two of the best players in the world who are there to deprive goals, to deprive joy, doing their thing versus what's happening in the Western Conference.
Steve Levy made this joke on the air. We could see 7 1-0 games, and honestly, that's not that big of a stretch. We could absolutely see that in some of those games going to triple overtime. That's how good these goaltenders are. And you're so right. With hockey nerds, we love seeing this kind of play. We love seeing those goaltending battles. And I'm not going to mind at all, especially because we're going to have that high-octane series over in the West. What about controversy potential?
Yeah, if you're going controversy potential, I think you got to go with the Eastern Conference. There's a gentleman on the New York Rangers, name of Jacob Trouba. Maybe you've heard of him, Arda. He's someone that delivers hits that are on the borderline, as the Hurricanes found out twice, as Sidney Crosby found out in the first round. Jacob Trouba is a difference maker for the New York Rangers in his play as a defenseman, but without question also with the way they can kind of hit people and just skirt those suspensions.
Yeah, and I mean, obviously there's controversy on the Western Conference side of things. I think people might point to Nazem Kadri, but I wonder if he's already beyond that now because, listen, he's got a different storyline going this postseason, and it's not so much about his past suspensions. It's almost a redemption story there, so it's going to be interesting to see if that continues throughout the playoffs. What about the best ensemble?
You know, I think best ensemble is an interesting one. I would probably give it to, I'd say, the Eastern Conference. I think these two teams are pretty deep. I think in the Rangers case in particular, you're seeing a team that really has kind of become a total team in the playoffs. You're talking about the deadline acquisitions of players like Andrew Kopp and Tyler Mott. You're talking about the fact that the homegrown kid line has really found themselves in these playoffs. And then you look over at the Tampa Bay Lightning, and you're talking about the reformation of that checking line. Gone is Yanni Gourde. Gone is Barclay Goodrow, now on the Rangers. Gone is Blake Coleman. In comes Corey Perry. Ross Colton gets promoted. And all of a sudden, the Lightning have restocked the cupboard in their bottom six. So top to bottom, these two teams, I think they're the best ensemble, Arda.
Yeah, okay. I in terms from top to bottom, the entire roster, all 4 lines, all 3 defense pairings, you definitely make a point there. But I just feel like the top heaviness of the Edmonton, Colorado series, I suppose it would be more interesting to watch from a personnel standpoint, even if it isn't necessarily top to bottom. Overall, I think the personnel are more interesting in the West than the East. What do you think about that?
You could make a case. As you know, I famously called the Avalanche bland at one point, so I don't know if I could necessarily agree with you there. But obviously, the offensive fireworks that those two teams could put together are great. And I'll say this about the Avalanche. They've definitely shown me more from a depth perspective than I thought that they had when the playoffs began and when the season began. Gone is Brandon Son, gone is Jonas Donskoy, gone is Bellemare. In comes all these new players in their bottom six, and they've done a great job.
All right. Well, right now, Tampa Bay and New York, the Eastern Conference Final, has defeated the Western Conference Final in terms of our rankings here. I'm just going to go ahead and press the Eastern Conference for better series for travel, particularly for hockey media. I'm pretty sure that hockey media such as yourself and others would much rather be in a big city like New York and hot climate like Tampa over Edmonton.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. I mean, I lucked out. I get to be in the greatest city in the world and then travel down to beautiful Tampa where there is kayaking and tiki bars. I do not have to travel from lovely Denver all the way up to the frozen tundra of Edmonton, Arda.
Yes, it's very unfortunate for those that do have to cover the series. There you see the beautiful images of Manhattan and the world's most famous arena, Madison Square Garden. It's always a lively city. It's always fun. And for hockey media, it's a great place to be. And while you get to cover the Eastern Conference Final here at ESPN, our dear colleague Kristen Shilton gets to cover the Western Conference Final. And while you may be able to make a case that Colorado, Denver specifically, is a nice place to visit, I'm Canadian born and raised, with all due respect to the wonderful people of Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. Yep, there she is.
There she is, folks. In her hotel accommodations in Edmonton, Alberta.
That's 5 stars, by the way, in Edmonton, according to Yelp.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming, sports, and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.